Introduction. This will be the last book about me. No, really, the last one that I will collaborate with. Ferran Adrià, in conversation with the author. My first trip to Spain in 1984 was a short one. My wife and I were staying in Saint-Jean-de-Luz in the French Basque country, and on a whim spun down the autoroute to San Sebastián one day for lunch at some nondescript restaurant in the city's Parte Vieja, or Old Town, then headed back a few hours later. My first real trip to Spain, a trip that changed my professional life and upended my personal one, came the following year and began on the other side of the country when we drove through the Roussillon and across the French border into Catalonia. In doing my homework for that trip, I'd found a reference to the dining room at the Motel Empordà, now called the Hotel Empordà, in Figueres, a few miles south of the frontier, describing it as a highly sophisticated restaurant started by José Mercader, founder of the new Catalan cuisine. I hadn't even known there was an old Catalan cuisine, but I was intrigued, and the Motel Empordà was the first place we stopped at to eat after we'd descended from the Pyrenees. Walking into the restaurant, I was engulfed by an attractive but exotic aroma that I couldn't quite identify, earthy, sweet, and a little dark, though not in any ominous sense. I later learned that this scent, unique to Catalan cooking, comes from the combination of the sofregit, onions and garlic long cooked in olive oil, and the picada, a mortar-ground paste of nuts, garlic, chocolate, and other ingredients. The two bookends, so to speak, of many traditional Catalan dishes. We sat down and ordered plump anchovy fillets served with little rounds of bread rubbed with tomato and drizzled with olive oil, my introduction to the quintessentially Catalan preparation called pa amb tomàquet, or bread with tomato, followed by salt cod croquettes, grilled squid, baby eggplants stuffed with anchovies and fresh herbs, and finally a kind of ragout of cuttlefish and pork meatballs, redolent of that room-filling scent. I was captivated. The raw materials were all familiar to me, mostly from meals I'd had in Italy, but the flavors and forms were somehow different, and I definitely wanted to learn and taste more. We drove on to Barcelona after lunch, and over the next few days we ate at a wide range of places, including a couple of contemporary Catalan restaurants, Farin and MG, and a traditionally Catalan hole-in-the-wall in the Gothic Quarter called Quatre Barres. From this brief sampling of local restaurants, I realized that there was something unusual going on here, a kind of accessible, seductive, Mediterranean-style cooking that was virtually unknown in America, and I thought it could make a great story. Back in the States, I quickly sold an article on the subject to Metropolitan Home. Before it was published, my agent took me to breakfast one day in Los Angeles and asked, "What's new in the food world?" I said, "Well, this is probably too obscure for a whole book, but there is this little corner of Spain." "You should write a proposal," she said. I did, and she sold it, and in June 1985 I signed a contract for my first cookbook to be titled Catalan Cuisine. I spent much of the next 2 years in Catalonia and the culturally related Països Catalans, or Catalan lands, including Valencia, the Balearic Islands, and the Roussillon, exploring tiny villages and cosmopolitan towns, visiting wineries and farms, and taking part in the processing of a just-slaughtered pig, and devouring everything from home-cooked meals to elegant contemporary-style restaurant dinners. It was in the course of my research that I first ate at a then obscure little restaurant called El Bulli, located pretty much in the middle of nowhere, perched above a cove called Cala Montjoy, on a narrow coastal road just outside the Costa Brava town of Roses, 20 miles or so south of the French border. In those days, El Bulli was isolated in more ways than one. Through the Spanish-born Los Angeles restaurateur and Penedès winemaker Jean Léon, I had been introduced to all manner of food and wine figures and gastronomically inclined locals around Catalonia, but not one of them, and among their number were several of the best-known Barcelona